Hey guys, MCU Collector here with another figure review. Next up is the Hasbro Marvel Legends series Thor Love and Thunder Korg Build-A-Figure Wave. This is the Build-A-Figure itself, Korg. This is the 8th video now from this wave. This is the last one, and we get to build Korg. So to help us, I'm going to recruit the help of Korg to build Korg. I actually thought that was going to be funny. I realize it's not really funny, but stick with me. Let's put this thing together. Okay, so we'll get the torso piece to Korg and we'll get the legs. This one is the left leg. Does it say L on it? Does it have an L? It says L1. So we know it is the left leg. It's weird. It's got this indent in here, but it doesn't look like there was really any purpose to that. That's kind of odd. But anyway, let's port that on there. So there is the leg. He's going to be tall, about the same size as the previous Korg figure. Let's get the right leg. We're gonna port that on there, and that's kind of a pain in the ass to port in there. And why are his legs super far apart? Like, why is that? That's strange. I cannot put his legs closer together. That is weird what's going on with the hips. Very strange, because if his feet are flat, he doesn't really stand up, so you have to angle the feet just to do that. That's going to be strange. Yeah, that's really weird. I don't like that at all. I wonder if that's just mine. I'm going to have to mess with it after I put them together. But let's get his arms now. So here we have his right arm. We're going to pop this into the shoulder. And this furry shoulder fur is kind of in the way. It's not something that you could really remove. It looks like it's glued in there, but to peg the arm in, you gotta have to get that peg down so you can pop this in there, because look at the rock pieces sticking up and that fur is really in the way. But you can pop it in there like so, and his arm just looks tiny compared to his legs, but I get his legs, he's got these big ass pants on and stuff. It's just kind of weird. The left arm, kind of the same thing with the big ass rock pieces sticking out of his shoulder. I have to pull that peg down a little bit as well, so we can peg that in there. But in it, oh, see? Oh, and I think I talked about this, right? In the video that the arm came with, that this one was really loose. Look at that, just popped right off there, didn't it? And now it doesn't really want to stay on all the way. So this is not going so well with my Korg Build-A-Figure. Hopefully it's just mine and not something that you guys are all going to experience. But man, it's not looking good so far. Here is the head to finish off Korg. And man, what an adventure that was. So here is Korg. And I can't get him to stand because of the way he is. So I'm going to have to mess with this a little bit. Let me pivot those feet a bit and see if I can get him to stand. And that's just weird. I don't know why that is. His head looks super tiny, and he doesn't have a wash. At least this Korg had a little bit. Man. Ay. Okay, so I'm gonna have to stop recording. I'm gonna have to mess with this and see if I can get him standing normal. We'll get the legs closer together, and then see what the hell's going on with that left arm, because that sucks. Let's see. Okay, and there is the Korg Build-A-Figure put together. So I got his left leg to come in more, but over time it gradually started to creep out a little bit. But as you can see, it's not as far apart with it, so I just kind of had to loosen him up a bit, kind of going back and forth with the legs and moving them all around to kind of loosen it up. And it comes together a little bit nicer, not as crazy as it was, but as you can see, it still wants to go a little bit spread out as opposed to just kind of closer together. I did manage to get this arm a little bit more firm on that peg, but it's very loose still and not very good, and it's likely going to come off while I'm showing the articulation of the figure. So that does, really suck. So just a heads up on that. It could be a QC issue on mine only, and let's see, the left arm came with... The left arm come up. It's not Valkyrie, because my left arm on Valkyrie is bad too. Left arm came with the Ravager Thor, which is probably going to be the hardest damn one to find. So that kind of sucks. But hopefully, again, it's just a QC issue on mine in particular, and not something that you're going to see with other figures or all of them. Fingers crossed, I wouldn't know. I haven't watched any other reviews on this. I'm sure there's a few out there already. So I can't say for sure. About the hips, I don't know if that's just mine or if that's going to be something you're going to see on all of them. Again, you know, loosening it up, that definitely helped as well. So it's not as bad, but it's still not the greatest. But here we have Korg. A couple of things. He actually looks pretty good. I know I'm giving it shit because, you know, it's a lighter gray and there's not a whole lot of wash and shading and stuff in there. It turns out there's actually some, like, on his face and stuff. But the head looks weird, and that's just more of a design for Korg from the movies, where it's not as bad, especially with, like, this one. His torso is very small, so that kind of sucks. But at least his head, without the large fur throwing off the size of the head compared to the rest of the body, it's not as bad. So that's kind of what I'm looking at, and that's what's throwing me off, because he's got very thick legs, because he's got these thick ass pants and he's got a lot of fur and stuff going on there, this big ass armor piece, and then the crazy fur around his shoulders. It just makes his head look really, really tiny for the figure, and that's not fair, because when you look at his body, it's about right. I still think it's a little small, but it's definitely closer and not as bad as I'm probably making it out to seem. But just, it definitely threw me off, looking at it. The Korgs are about the same height. The heads are not the same, even though they're very similar. We get different facial expressions. We have an open mouth on the other one. Here he has a closed mouth. The eyes are tiny, and you can hardly see. So they did a digital print, but I don't know if they gave him light colored eyes, but you can hardly see his eyes on there. And when we get in for the closer look, you'll see what I'm talking about. But overall, I mean, it looks good on the shelf. I think this left leg keeps going out. It looks good, and the little bit that we saw of him in the teaser trailer, it's how he looks from the movie. We'll see what he does in the movie and how badass he might be. But it's just a kind of a cool looking figure. But we'll see how it moves and all of that. So let's get in for the closer look so we can see the details first. Okay, so here's the closer look at Korg, and here's what I'm talking about with the eyes. As you can see, you can hardly tell that they're there. I mean, you see the little indent of where eyes would be, but you can hardly see the paint applied on there because it is the digital print on a very light gray plastic. The old figure, you could see he has black eyes, so you could definitely see them, but from first glance and far away, you can hardly tell. You can hardly see his mouth, the sculpt of it, and part of that is going to be lack of paint to bring out the detail. So earlier I mentioned that I think there was a wash. I think it's my bright lights playing tricks on me, because it almost looks like there could be a light gray wash over it, but as I look at it more, I think it's just kind of the glare and the effect that the plastic looks with all of the sharp edges and the details of the sculpt. I don't think there's a wash on there, and I think there should have been. Would have been a lot better. I mean, even this guy got some paint wash going on throughout to bring out some of the details. This guy just didn't, and that sucks. I wish they would have. Looking at the fur, we get this nice wash, this light brown wash over the fur to bring out the details. That looks pretty good. His armor, all the brown leather spots all look really good. You got a nice clean texture on the brown to really make the leather look to it. Some silver for the rivets and things like that around the belt. Buckle here for the straps. Around the back, the whole belt. Look at all that texture detail on there, and the rivets all painted silver. Gauntlet pieces, the same thing. We get this armband here. That's part of the sculpt. That's not like on there loose fitting or anything like that. Big ass ram right in there. Front, the gold. A little bit of gold on the sides there. Those look pretty good. Looking at his one accessory, this is the same weapon piece that we got with the previous Korg figure, but this is painted differently. We get more gold, and then this kind of shiny gray plastic look to it, which kind of sucks. I wish it wasn't shiny. I mean, it's better than this flat gray that we got before, but it is the same piece. It's not any different. Better gold though on it for sure. Although this is a pretty good gold too. This is just a darker gold, but it's the same. Looking at the pants, we got this funky design, so we get some darker blue over the light blue, and then some of the red spots on the pattern. The knee pads, we get the brown with the gold. here on his I was gonna say boots, but they're not really boots. They're just, you know, shin padding. But it's got the same fur that matches his shoulders. Get some brown straps kind of tied throughout to hold the fur in place. You can see they painted the straps for the most part. That would be kind of some of the fur overlapping where those straps would be. It came out pretty good. And then we have his feet here, and we got weird placement for those peg holes on the feet. But that's it. And you can see the leg still like wants to bow out and doesn't want to stay close together. But let's see his articulation. It's probably pretty similar to the previous figure, but a lot of it's going to be kind of hidden in. So let's see how it moves. I'm worried about the shoulders for sure. Okay, so Korg, he can look down that much. He can look up. Oops, pop the head right off. He can look up about that much there. See, I'm looking at this head. The more I look at it, it looks like there is some gray paint applied to it, and I'm like tripping out. Is that paint or is that my bright ass lights? It's hard to tell. Next, you get a swivel at the neck, of course. There's some pivot going on there, not a whole lot. Now the shoulder, I shouldn't have done that one, right? You can get the shoulder to go straight out. You can do a full rotation, but it gets really tricky because of the fur. You can do it, but you got to really work around it. Upper bicep swivel in there on my right arm is good. The left arm is shit. Pinless double jointed elbows, so he can bend the elbow that much there. Wrists swivel, and they do this, so it has a vertical hinge, but it's hard to do it because it's reset back in that arm quite a bit, but you can see the hinge there. So that kind of sucks. I think these are the same hands that we got before. No, slightly different hands, I guess. At least this open hand is different. But this hand has the opposite swivel, so we get the horizontal on this guy. So that does no good. Diaphragm joint, as you can see there, we get the swivel there. He could pivot to his left a little bit. He could pivot to his right a little bit. Going back, actually quite a bit going back. Going forward, it's probably going to be very little. Ah, look at that. Very little on the crunch forward. Legs go out that far apart. He can kick forward that far. Doesn't really go back. You have the upper thigh cut where the leg comes together. You get a double jointed knee that is pinless. You get that much bend at the knee. And that doesn't look terrible, though it's not the prettiest look. You can really see the flat edges of the hinge in there. So a little unfortunate. No boot swivel or anything. Foot hinges down a little bit. It's pretty thin foot, so you can actually work it over that fur to get more range. I'd just be careful with that. Hinging up, not a whole lot because it's really going to hit that fur. There is ankle pivot, but that fur really gets in the way. But it is there. You just kind of have to play with it a little bit. And then the peg holes, you know, way off on the sides of the feet. So that is how much he moves. I don't know that he needs to be like super flexible and get into some crazy poses, but he should be able to get decently into poses that you're going to need. It would be nice if he had a functioning left arm. Hopefully yours will be, because mine just, you know, really isn't. So that sucks. Okay, so here's kind of our Ravager Guardians of the Galaxy grouping of some of the figures from the movie Thor Love and Thunder. So we have Groot, Ravager, Thor, and Star-Lord. You can see Korg is just towering all of them. Size-wise, I think these work out really well. I don't think we've seen these two in the same scene at all, right? So same with Star-Lord, to see kind of how they would look. But, you know, of course, it's going to be quite huge compared. Okay, and some Asgardians next to Korg. So we got the Battle Armor Thor, or whatever armor Thor, powered up Thor. I don't really know what we would refer to this guy since we got two Thors in the way, but Thor and King Valkyrie. Just a couple of figures, you know, with bad left arms there. Size comparisons look pretty good there. Okay, now our newcomers to the bunch. We got the Jane Foster Mighty Thor and Gore the God Butcher. I'm sure we will see these two on screen together. These two, I'm not sure. Probably. We'll see when the movie comes out in July. But yeah, looking really nice together. Okay, so here we have the entire wave together. Now, if I do a ranking, I do not include the Build-A-Figures in the ranking because Build-A-Figure in most cases should be the best figure in the wave. Not should be only because it's like a special figure, you put it together and everything. Oh, anyway, if I were to rank, and this is actually kind of a tough one because there's a few figures that are really, really nice and unexpectedly nice. I really, really like this Mighty Thor figure. She's going to be my number 1. My number 2 is probably going to be the regular Thor figure, even though I don't necessarily like the helmet that he has. But this head going onto that figure is awesome because the figure is amazing. So number 1, number 2, number 3 goes to Ravager Thor. That is a really good figure, and I love the head sculpt. Number 4, I'm going to go with King Valkyrie. Even though my left arm on mine is crap and is going to break, and I'm scared to do anything with it. QC issues aside, this is a good figure. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Gore the God Butcher, 6, Groot, 7, Star-Lord, 8, well, there wouldn't be an 8, but Korg in there. If I were to include Korg, I'm pretty disappointed in the Korg figure. Actually, I'd probably put him in front of the Groot figure. So what would that put him as, like number 6 maybe? Because I like these other figures a whole lot. I mean, the Mighty Thor, Thor, and Ravager Thor are really, really good figures that I do recommend you guys pick up. King Valkyrie is very good too. Hopefully, you know, the shoulder's not going to be as bad. If this shoulder looks like it's out a little too far, you might have one of the issues that I have, so be careful with it. Gore, we'll see how he is in the movie. The change from the comic design is pretty wild, but we'll see how he looks. The head sculpt on him is really, really, really good. I mean, it is Christian Bale shrunken down into 6-inch form. That's how good that head sculpt is. So they, you know, each figure has its things. You know, the Teen Groot, huge improvement over the previous one. It's awesome. Star-Lord, not necessary because it's, for the most part, you know, if you have the other Star-Lord figures, you have a very good Star-Lord. I don't think this is a better Star-Lord by any means. So that, you know, that's kind of working against it. Korg, you got to have a Korg figure, but I think this one is the Korg for me. I really like this one more so. The color difference in the Rock, though, is kind of strange, but in Thor Ragnarok, this is about the color that he was, and it's kind of weird that they would change up the color to such a lighter, you know, choice for Thor Love and Thunder. It's a bit odd. But that's how I would rank the wave. You guys let me know down in the comments below how you would rank it. Okay, so this figure's actually kind of pissing me off a lot right now because I want to do stuff with his left arm to try and hold like this blaster thing. It's really difficult because I want to move the arm over and it just doesn't get a whole lot of range, and then I end up usually popping that arm off, and then he can't hold. The way this gauntlet piece is designed, like, I get it, right? It's supposed to provide padding to his hand and things, but then when you do that, it's crap. He can't hold this really well when you turn it, and because the way the hand is just so far into that wrist, the hinge, see, I even lost the hand now. The hinge just doesn't the hinge just doesn't work well. So that really sucks. You know, you want to hinge it to where he can hold this a certain way, and then it's just too tricky. So it's hard to get him into any kind of pose to actually be using his weapon, and then to try and hold it, you know, with his other hand. It's like impossible. It's got a lot of things working against it, which really sucks because, you know, there's a lot of potential for this figure. It's just aggravating and irritating all at the same time. So it's kind of tough, you know. Depending on how he's going to be in the movie will determine a little bit more, you know, how much he's going to be needed in a collection. You know, if you don't get every single movie figure, maybe this is a super easy pass for you to, you know, in building Korg. Maybe you only pick and choose some of the figures from the wave. I get it. If you're looking to replace this one, I would definitely hold off. I don't think that you should be so quick to want to replace this figure. This figure, you know, I'm really happy with. I don't really have any complaints. This one, the hand, you can actually use the hinge on this one. It's a little stiff, but you can actually use it. It's not so far into his arm that you couldn't. You know, the color is different, but it's nice. The face is a lot more noticeable on this one compared to this one, right? It just kind of lost in there. So, you know, I don't see this one as a replacement for this Korg by any means. I just see this one in addition to kind of fit how he's going to look in Thor: The Love and Thunder, the movie. But yeah, that's it. That's my review. It's not going to be the greatest. I didn't have the highest praise of this figure. It kind of sucks in a lot of aspects, and that's really because of the wrist, the lack of paint in his rocky skin, and the QC issue of my left arm being absolute trash. So that sucks. But you know, if once I'll get a replacement arm eventually, that'll make it a whole lot better. I'll be satisfied when I do that. But you know, they definitely could have done better with this Korg figure, starting with paint, not having this issue with the wrist, and then whatever the hip issues that I'm having with mine, it could just be mine. Maybe if I heat it up long enough, it'll want to stay, but this, you know, it keeps wanting to revert back, and just looks kind of weird, you know, if he's standing like with his legs like this. It's kind of odd. But that's it. You guys let me know down in the comments below your thoughts on this figure. Hopefully it wasn't too bad, because you know, it sucks when you see a review and there's just problems with the figure. On one hand, that's good that you could see the problems. On the other hand, it sucks because this one isn't something that's going to be a problem with all of them. Unless it is, then it's really bad. So it's kind of tough, but you know, you guys just let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you guys liked the video, please, I hope you did, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and as always, thank you for watching, and check out that big ass gold ram. If I can get it in focus, which I cannot. How about that? Look at that big ass gold ram. That's pretty cool.